So I want to introduce Jessi, Klein, Zandani. Hart Avenue is well represented by her and our neighbors. She lives up the street. I've known her parents ever since. And to me, she'll always be 15 and a classic California blonde with a surfboard heading down to the beach. But she grew up and she went to Israel on birthright, and she met a very handsome guy and fell in love. And I knew she was living there, and I'd see her mom, Joni, who's with us today, and who would come back from visits and so on. And every once in a while, Jessi would come back, and she's friends with my daughters. And then came October 7th, and I knew she lived south because of the Yemenite community and close to Gaza. And then I'm watching, I'm glued, as we all are, to the TV, and I'm watching CNN, and there is Jake Tapper, and Jessi is on international TV, and he's talking to her and talking about her moves and her children, and also at that point we're looking for a break from that's several days in, and from the rockets and so on, because as I say, they're very close. And so fortunately, I guess Jake Tapper helped you come back to visit for a while, and she's heading back. So I said, we can't wait, and would she come over to Mishkan and tell us a little bit about her day and the days after. So with humility and great pride, it's my honor to introduce Jessi, Klein, Zandani.
So, hi everyone. Boker Tov. I am definitely, as he says, a Santa Monica kind of girl. Grew up here. I also want to say a little something about what October 6th was about and what our lives were like, because I think that is so important. Not only because it is a flame that no matter what happened on October 7th, they will never be able to extinguish. October 6th was like every other day. The kids were home from school. They had been on what we like to call the second summer break, because they go to school for basically 1 week and then all of the high holidays happen. So we had woken up and we got ready. My husband was making pancakes like my children like. The day was still warm and hot, for my opinion. He jokes around about how, my father doesn't work for the electrical company, so I should probably stop making our house the only igloo in Israel. And it was beautiful. It was calm. We had had 2 years of peace that allowed us to slightly forget that there was something so sinister and evil just across the fence. And as we got ready for Shabbat, having Simchat Torah the next day, the kids were playing. They went to the migrash, the soccer field. I'd lock them out until, Dad came home from the synagogue, because who doesn't want their kids to not be playing outside rather than PlayStation? So it was beautiful. It was absolutely serene and perfect. We were getting ready. We were getting ready, cooking, getting the house ready, like every other Friday. My husband came home. We had our dinner, our Shabbat dinner, and everything seemed perfect. We slightly thought about the fact that I didn't want to go to his parents' families over there, because they're always constantly fighting over whose Jachnun and Malawach and Cubana are better. And his sister, obviously, whom I love and cherish from afar. But it never felt like there was something that was going to go so horribly wrong. The morning of October 7th was different than anything else I could possibly, nobody could have imagined that. We were asleep. I was still trying to, as of the night before, trying to convince my husband that we didn't need to go to his uncle's house. Maybe we should take 2 cars. I can, the women don't really need to be there so early. We can have the kids play because, sorry. Simchat Torah is another one of what we call the children's holidays, where the kids just play. There's barely any cars. They're just out the whole entire day. So we woke up by my son, who ran in. And he had woken up first because our bedroom was our bomb shelter. And we didn't hear it at first. He ran in screaming, and that was when the alarm went off. And we gathered everything. We have 20 seconds. 20 seconds to get the children, 20 seconds to get the dogs, 20 seconds to make sure that the neighbors come and are able to unlock the gate and get inside, 20 seconds to close the window, the very large, heavy steel door that covers the window from one side to the other, to bring down the locks that lock us in, to close the door that you need both hands and sometimes, male brute strength to be able to close all the way. And you're counting, because it's not just when the siren stops. It's when you start hearing the bombs falling. My children immediately got into my bed, covered themselves with our blankets, trying to, as children, just make the fear go away. And we're all huddled there, and we start to have messages. The messages that were coming up from lower down, from closer to the border, and they were terrifying, but nobody could possibly believe it. I mean, it sounded like a bad joke. It was just something that an imagination could never fully obtain. We knew it was happening, but we couldn't believe it. But they kept coming. They kept coming. The messages kept coming and coming. And we really realized that, okay, my God, this is actually happening. Our worst fears that nobody could have, it was happening. My husband grabbed as many objects to fight back with: kitchen knives, baseball bats, anything that we could, to get into the safe room and lock the doors, while I took out tinfoil to be able to block the windows, because I knew that if they had seen movement inside the house, then we were going to be really up a bad creek, so to speak. And this was all before 8 o'clock in the morning. When we found out that not just had they taken and hijacked our military installations at the south, and that they were also hijacking the police vehicles and other vehicles in order to get in, we realized that we were not just on our own, but that as a community, because we're in the moshavim, the kibbutzim, that we needed to band together, that the only way through was with each one of us taking a stand, and not just fighting back, but as a community to be able to say, this is We are not going to let this happen. Our children are more important. Our children deserve life. Our children deserve a future. So my husband, with the other men on the moshav, got together and they went out. We locked ourselves inside and prayed that it wasn't going to be us, that we weren't going to be next. And we were luckier, so much luckier than most, so much luckier than people that we know, people that our children know, that they've played with, that they've grown up with. We were able to catch them outside, coming into our fields. And personally, I think we should have shot them in the head, but the information was undeniably something that was 100% needed to be able to go forward, to be able to get that type of intel was completely necessary. So on the one hand, yes, I would have liked to have a different scenario there, but those monsters, they kept coming. They kept coming for 3 days. We brought mattresses. There were 7 of us sleeping in my bedroom, the dogs. It was something I never in my life thought I would ever have to experience or have my children experience. My daughter ran around with scissors in the room because she wanted to be able to protect mom and dad and her brothers as well. And all around us that day and the days to follow, you would hear it getting closer. You knew it was coming, but the fact that you could hear the gunshots and you could hear the screams didn't make it feel any less or any more safe, because as we got the information of what was happening, the true horrors of it began to really be felt and created even more fear in that. We ask ourselves there, where were they? Where was the army? Where were the police? Where was everybody? For hours, we were alone. For hours, nobody came. But as we now know, they had been taken. They had been taken and they had been blown up, having fought with every single bit of energy and heroism that you could possibly have in that situation. Those hours passed as minutes. They kept going on. They tried in every which way to get in, including parasailing with basically a lawnmower engine behind them. And they just kept coming. Didn't know when it would stop. But as the bombs were falling and the house was shaking, I realized, as I told my kids once they had said that they had been able to contain it, that it's okay now. It's okay because it's only rockets. And as I said that, I realized to myself that what kind of a mother tells their children that it's okay, it's only rockets? That's not something that should be normal. That's not something that should have to be said. And it comes down to the account that these are people that glorify death, that want to die, that believe and truly in every bone and fiber of their body believe that this life is not what is worth to be living, but that they will have a better life in the next one. And that is a very scary thought. When you have two religions that are so innately opposite, These are people that we had trusted, that we have our kids growing up with. They play together. We live side by side with them. There are pharmacists, there are doctors, lawyers, they sit on our parliament. How do you come back from that? There's no answer. As the Parsha said today, you have Jacob, the one who tries to make amends, and his brother who open arms takes him back. But there's also a sense of forgiveness. And how do you attain that? How do you ask for forgiveness? How do you beg for forgiveness from God, from the universe, when we've gone through as a people so much, from the pogroms, the Holocaust, and those are just the most recent? How do you ask as a country to be able to heal when not only are we still in there, my husband is still there, my family is still in there, they're deep in Gaza now, every single one of them. How do you ask for forgiveness when we've lost so much in such a brutal way? How do you come back as a nation knowing that these mothers on the other side of the fence were willing to sacrifice not just their own children, but to put them in a place where they are being indoctrinated, taught how to kill a Jew, how to murder in mass numbers? How do we know who we can trust? How do we know how to come back? And what are we going to come back to? So many people that day lost their homes, not just their lives, but simple things that mean nothing to us normally. A pair of shoes, my kids' Nintendo, for one. It's something that is so simple and taken so much for granted that to be able to fathom what has gone on there, and in a country that had been so divided these past couple years, to look back and to see from that to where it's come, it's amazing. As a Jewish community, it's been amazing. There was a very big general of the Egyptian army when Israel was first being established. He said, the Jews, let them be. Don't interfere. Because when you have the Jews, they always wind up fighting between each other. They'll tear each other apart. They'll wind up, like every other time, they always question everything. They make sure that there's always some kind of debate. They'll wind up ruining their own country by themselves. We don't have to do anything. Let them alone. But the thing that he forgot, the thing that he misjudged, was that in times of horror and in times of persecution, the one thing that we all have in common is not just being Jewish, but the humanity of being Jewish. The fact that we have mitzvot, the fact that we go out of our way in the simplest ways to give $1 to somebody who needs it, or a pair of shoes for somebody who lost them. Things that you cannot find elsewhere. And it has been an amazing honor to be able to come here and talk to you. I wish I could share more, but I am worried that I will completely damage you all for what had happened that day. The stories that come out are horrible and keep coming. I would like to tell you that, the hostages will all come back safe. But as we know, we're probably not going to see that. But I hope that one day, when all of this is finished, when our husbands and our brothers, our nephews and our nieces are able to come home, that we will be able to yet again have Simchat Torah, Yom Kippur, Rosh Hashanah, and be able to have our children running in the streets and playing like every other year, because they are children's holidays, which is exactly why they were able to get so many of those kids. But I guess the question still remains that how do you forgive? How do you move on? And as a community, I think that that's the most important thing, that we rely on each other and take solace in the fact that we are one. And thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for having me. Truly appreciate it. Yeah.
There's a very profound conversation happening right now in the Jewish community. After October 7th, there was this awakening that we are all one community. We all absorbed the trauma in our own way. And now we're past 40 days. I realize that for many of us here, we have the space to think not just as people who've been attacked, but certainly American Jews have the space to think about what it means to be a Jew in the midst of a war. And we have conversations about the ethics of war, the morality of war. If we don't want to lose our moral high ground, how do we prosecute this war in a way that doesn't make us feel like we're losing our humanity? And that's it's a weirdly twisting conversation, because there's meaning in it, and then there's something that can be objectionable in it, and like, too soon, not yet. But and I heard Yuval Noah Harari say something so profound that I want us to acknowledge and hold as well. That for Israelis, more so than for us, there is such a profound sense of attack, of vulnerability, of pain, psychological pain, that there is just simply no room to consider anybody else's considerations. And that's okay. We have to make space for that too. Doesn't mean we change our minds, but it means we be silent, at least for a minute. We cannot hold high expectations. On the one hand. On the other hand, let us never foreclose on our desire to retain our humanity. But let us give a little bit of space and embrace. Thank you.